You feel it, don't you? Something is changing. Not outside first, inside. You don't react the way you used to. You don't chase what you once chased. You don't tolerate what you once tolerated. And it's confusing because while the world looks the same, you don't feel the same. Here's the truth most people will never understand: selection is not random. The universe doesn't elevate everyone at the same time. It filters, it pressures, it tests, it removes, it isolates, it stretches, and only a small percentage adapt instead of collapse. If you're watching this and something in you feels activated instead of threatened by change, this message is for you. You are not ahead by accident. You are responding differently. That difference is the shift. 1. The 1% are the ones who stopped blaming. Most people stay stuck because they need someone to blame: their parents, their ex, the economy, their boss, their luck, their past. And blame is attractive because it protects the ego. It says, "It's not my fault." And the moment you say that, you feel temporary relief. You feel justified. You feel validated. But relief is not progress. Blame feels powerful for a second. Then it quietly chains you to the same position. Because if someone else is responsible for your life, then someone else has the power to change it. And that means you don't. That's the hidden cost of blaming. And it removes responsibility, but it also removes control. The shift begins the moment you say, "It's on me." Not in a self-hating way, not in a shame-filled way, not in a way that ignores real hardships. Life can be unfair. People can betray you. Circumstances can crush you. That's reality. But here's the deeper truth. You are still responsible for your response. That's the line the 1% cross. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do about it?" That question changes everything. When you stop blaming your parents, you stop replaying your childhood and start rewriting your future. When you stop blaming your ex, you stop obsessing over betrayal and start examining your patterns. When you stop blaming the economy, you stop complaining about opportunity and start building skill. When you stop blaming luck, you start preparing so intensely that opportunity can't ignore you. And the moment you shift from accusation to ownership, your energy changes. You stopped waiting for rescue. That's rare. Most people secretly wait for someone to save them. A mentor, a partner, a wealthy friend, a perfect opportunity, a sudden breakthrough. They tell themselves, "When the right moment comes, I'll rise." But the right moment never comes to those who aren't already rising. You realize something critical. No one is coming. Not to fix your discipline, and not to repair your mindset, not to build your habits, not to save your potential. That realization is not depressing. It's empowering, because once you understand that no one is coming, you stop delaying action. You stopped explaining your stagnation. This is where most people stay trapped. They have a story for everything. "I'm tired because," "I can't focus because," "I'm behind because," "I failed because." And maybe those reasons are valid, but valid reasons still produce the same result if nothing changes. The 1% don't ignore their circumstances. They outgrow them. Instead of repeating the story, they study it. Instead of defending their weakness, they confront it. Instead of protecting their ego, they challenge it. You started asking a different question: what can I control? That question alone separates you from the 99% because control is smaller than people think. You can't control the market, but you can't control the weather. You can't control someone's loyalty. You can't control timing, but you can control your preparation. You can control your discipline. You can control your standards. You can control how long you stay distracted. You can control whether you react emotionally or respond strategically. That's enough. And once you focus only on what you can control, something strange happens. Your confidence increases. Not fake confidence, not loud confidence, or quiet confidence, because now your progress is no longer dependent on permission. Blaming keeps you comfortable. Responsibility makes you dangerous. Blame says, I couldn't. Responsibility says, I didn't yet. Blame says, they held me back. Responsibility says, I let it hold me back. That second sentence is uncomfortable. It stings. It exposes you. But it also gives you power. When you admit, I allowed this, you unlock the ability to say, and I will no longer allow this. That's dangerous energy. Dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to stagnation, dangerous to old patterns. Most people avoid responsibility because it feels heavy. But here's the paradox. Responsibility feels heavy at first. Then it becomes freedom. Blame feels light at first. Then it becomes a prison. When you own your life fully, you stop fearing criticism. You stop fearing failure. You stop fearing mistakes. Why? Because everything becomes feedback. And if you fail, you adjust. If you lose, you learn. If you get rejected, you refine. There's no emotional collapse, only recalibration. That's how the 1% think. They don't see themselves as victims of circumstance. They see themselves as architects of direction. And understand this clearly. Taking responsibility does not mean accepting abuse. It does not mean tolerating injustice. It does not mean denying reality. It means choosing agency over helplessness. It means saying, even if I didn't create this situation, I will decide how it shapes me. That mindset is rare. Most people want sympathy more than solutions. But the universe doesn't select victims. It selects owners. Owners of their habits. Owners of their reactions. Owners of their mistakes. Owners of their growth. And ownership changes posture. You walk differently. You speak differently. You think differently. You no longer say, life did this to me. You say, this happened. Or now watch what I build from it. That is the shift. That is the moment you step into the 1%. Not because you became lucky, not because circumstances improved, but because you stopped outsourcing your power. And once you stop blaming, you stop being controlled. That's when real elevation begins. 2. The 1% feel lonely. But don't run back. Let's say it clearly. Growth is isolating, not because you're better than anyone, but because you're no longer aligned with everyone. When your standards rise, your circle shrinks. When your discipline increases, your distractions decrease. When your mindset sharpens, your tolerance for nonsense drops. And that creates distance. Most people don't talk about this part. They talk about success. They talk about breakthroughs. They talk about elevation. But they don't talk about the silence that comes before it. You start noticing conversations feel shallow. You start realizing certain jokes don't feel funny anymore. And you start outgrowing habits that used to bond you with people. And suddenly, you feel alone in rooms you once felt comfortable in. That loneliness is not a mistake. It's a transition. The 99% panic at this stage. They feel the gap forming and they rush to close it. They shrink their goals, they loosen their discipline, they laugh at things that don't align. They say yes when they should say no. Why? Because belonging feels safer than becoming. But the 1% do something different. Ask, they sit with it. They don't run back. That's the difference. When you begin evolving, you naturally disrupt the balance around you. People who bonded with your old version may feel uncomfortable with your new one, not because they hate you, but because your growth reflects their stagnation, and that reflection can feel threatening. So some will distance themselves, some will question you, some will subtly try to pull you back to your old self. And why are you so serious now? You've changed. You think you're better? Those comments test you. And here's the brutal truth. If you retreat to keep people comfortable, you disqualify yourself from elevation. The 1% understand something the 99% don't. Isolation is not rejection. It's calibration. You are being repositioned. When you level up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, your environment must adjust. And not everyone is meant to adjust with you. That doesn't make them bad. It just means they were seasonal. Most people cling to relationships out of familiarity, not alignment. They stay because it's comfortable, because it's history, because starting new feels uncertain. But growth requires uncertainty. You began choosing alignment over familiarity. That's rare. You stopped tolerating conversations that drain you. You stopped explaining your ambition to people committed to comfort. You stopped diluting your goals to avoid intimidating others. And yes, and it felt lonely. It still feels lonely sometimes. Let's not romanticize it. There are nights when you question yourself, moments when you wonder if you're overdoing it, times when you miss the simplicity of who you used to be. That's normal. But understand this clearly. Missing comfort does not mean you should return to it. When a snake sheds its skin, it doesn't crawl back into it. You are shedding identities, old habits, old patterns, old social dynamics, and shedding is uncomfortable. The 99% interpret discomfort as a signal to stop. The 1% interpret discomfort as a signal of expansion. That's the mindset shift. Instead of asking, "Why am I alone?" you ask, "What is this phase preparing me for?" Because solitude is not empty, it's strategic. When you're alone, you hear yourself more clearly, you think deeper, you analyze without noise, you build without distraction. Many breakthroughs are born in isolation, and most people never experience that level of clarity because they constantly drown it with company. They scroll, they text, they distract, anything to avoid sitting with themselves. But you stayed. You faced your thoughts. You faced your fears. You confronted your insecurities without an audience. That builds internal strength, and internal strength attracts different energy, higher level conversations, higher level connections, higher level opportunities. But you can't access them if you keep clinging to lower level comfort. Here's another hard truth. Some relationships were built on who you were, not who you're becoming. If you evolve and they don't, tension is inevitable. And that tension forces a decision. Shrink or separate. The 1% choose separation when necessary, not out of ego, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Because you understand something most people don't. Environment influences identity. And if you stay surrounded by people who normalize mediocrity, eventually you'll normalize it too. If you stay around people who mock discipline, eventually you'll loosen yours. If you stay around people who fear risk, eventually you'll fear it too. So sometimes solitude is protection, and protection is preparation. The universe separates before it elevates. It clears space, it removes noise, it exposes who truly aligns and who only benefited from your smaller version. And if you're in that space right now, where your circle feels smaller, your conversations feel fewer, your path feels quieter, don't panic. This is not loss. This is refinement. You are not being abandoned. You are being repositioned. The 1% don't chase company to avoid discomfort. They endure temporary isolation to build permanent strength. And when the next level opens, they're ready because they didn't run back, they didn't shrink, they didn't apologize for evolving, and they stayed the course. That's why they rise. 3. The 1% master their emotions. Let's get something straight. You don't become powerful by eliminating emotion. You become powerful by controlling it. Most people are ruled by how they feel in the moment. If they feel motivated, they work. If they feel tired, they quit. If they feel offended, they explode. If they feel insecure, they withdraw. Their life direction changes based on their mood. That's instability. And instability is expensive. The 99% react, the 1% respond. That difference sounds small, but it changes everything. Reaction is instant, emotional, unfiltered. Response is delayed, measured, strategic. When someone disrespects you, your first impulse might be anger. That's normal, but what you do next determines your level. The 99% let anger speak. The 1% pause. That pause is power. It's the space between stimulus and action. And in that space, your identity is decided. And most people don't even realize they're emotionally addicted. Addicted to drama, addicted to outrage, addicted to validation, addicted to feeling right. They chase emotional spikes like entertainment. They argue online. They over-explain themselves. They defend their ego at all costs. And they call it passion. It's not passion. It's lack of control. You started noticing this in yourself. Moments when your pride wanted to speak. Moments when your insecurity wanted to react. In moments when your fear wanted to retreat. And instead of obeying those impulses, you question them. Is this reaction helping my long-term vision? That question alone puts you ahead of most people, because emotional mastery isn't suppression, it's awareness. You still feel anger, you still feel jealousy, you still feel anxiety, but you don't let those feelings steer the wheel. You observe them, you dissect them, you ask where they're coming from. Instead of saying, I'm angry, and you think, anger is rising. That slight shift creates distance, and distance creates control. The 99% fuse with their emotions, the 1% study them. Here's the hard truth. Your emotions are not always telling the truth. Fear exaggerates risk. Ego exaggerates threat. Insecurity exaggerates rejection. Excitement exaggerates certainty. If you act on every emotional surge, your life becomes chaotic. You'll start projects you never finish. Or you'll end relationships you could have repaired. You'll burn bridges you later need. You'll say things that permanently damage trust. Emotional discipline prevents unnecessary destruction. And discipline is not glamorous. It's quiet. It's walking away from arguments you could win. It's staying calm when someone expects you to explode. It's not proving your intelligence to someone committed to misunderstanding you. That restraint feels weak in the moment, but long term, it's dominance. Because when you master your reactions, no one can manipulate you. Think about it. If someone can trigger you instantly, they control you. If someone can provoke you into distraction, they control your focus. If someone can insult you into self-doubt, they control your confidence. The 1% refuse to give away that control. They understand that emotional volatility makes you predictable, and predictability makes you easy to disrupt. Instead, they cultivate stability, and they train themselves to remain composed under pressure. They choose long-term strategy over short-term satisfaction. Let's talk about fear. Fear stops most people from ever entering their potential. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of looking foolish, fear of losing status. The 99% interpret fear as a stop sign. The 1% interpret fear as a signal of growth. If something scares you but aligns with your vision, that's usually the direction. But emotional immaturity turns fear into paralysis. Emotional mastery turns fear into fuel. Now let's talk about praise. This one is subtle. Most people lose discipline not from criticism, but from applause. They start getting recognition, they feel validated, they relax, they get emotionally attached to approval, and slowly their edge dulls. The 1% don't get intoxicated by praise. They appreciate it, but they don't depend on it. Because dependence creates vulnerability. And if your motivation relies on applause, you will crumble when it disappears. Emotional mastery means your identity doesn't fluctuate with external reactions, not with criticism, not with praise. You remain steady, and steadiness is rare. You've probably noticed something already. As you've grown, certain situations that used to trigger you no longer do. Things that once ruined your day now barely move you. That's not indifference. That's evolution. And you've expanded your emotional capacity. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. That calm presence is strength, because energy saved from emotional chaos can be redirected toward progress. Most people waste years reacting. You started building instead. And understand this clearly. Mastering your emotions does not make you cold. It makes you intentional. You still care, you still love, and you still feel deeply. But you don't allow feelings to override your direction. You don't let temporary emotions sabotage permanent goals. That's the shift. The 99% live in emotional weather, constantly changing. The 1% build internal climate, stable, grounded, consistent. And consistency compounds. When you're emotionally stable, your decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your results improve. When your results improve, your confidence strengthens. And that confidence isn't loud, it's controlled. It's knowing that no matter what happens externally, internally you remain disciplined. That's real power. Not dominance over others, dominance over yourself. Because once you can control your reactions, you become unshakable. And unshakable people rise, not because life is easier for them, but because life can't destabilize them. That's why emotional mastery separates the 1% from everyone else. 4. The 1% are addicted to growth, not comfort. Let's strip this down to something simple. Most people don't actually want growth. They want improvement without discomfort. They want results without pressure. They want transformation without friction. That's fantasy. Growth is uncomfortable by design. If it feels easy, You're not expanding, you're maintaining. The 99% are addicted to comfort. Comfort in routines that require no discipline. Comfort in relationships that require no courage. In comfort in habits that require no evolution. They don't call it comfort, they call it being realistic. But realism is often a disguise for fear. The 1% operate differently. They become addicted to growth itself, not the applause, not the outcome, not the status, the process. That's the difference. You started noticing something. When things feel too easy for too long, you get restless. When you're not learning, you feel stagnant. When you repeat the same patterns without progress, something inside you feels off. That discomfort is not anxiety, it's expansion pressure. Most people numb that pressure. They scroll, they binge, they distract, they complain. Anything to avoid the internal voice saying, "You're capable of more." But you stopped numbing it. You listened. And listening forced action. Growth is not glamorous. It's reading when you're tired. It's training when your body wants to quit. It's saying no to temporary pleasure because you value long-term strength. It's choosing discipline over dopamine. That's rare because dopamine is immediate, growth is delayed, and humans naturally chase what feels good now. The 1% override that instinct. They delay gratification strategically. They understand something the 99% ignore. Short-term comfort creates long-term weakness. Short-term discomfort creates long-term strength. And every time you choose the harder option aligned with your future, you reinforce your identity. You tell yourself, "I am someone who does difficult things." Identity compounds. If you constantly choose comfort, you reinforce weakness. If you constantly choose growth, you reinforce power. There's no neutral. You are either reinforcing discipline or reinforcing avoidance. Look at your average day. The 99% ask, "What do I feel like doing?" The 1% ask, "Well, what moves me forward?" Those questions create different lives. Feelings fluctuate. Vision stays. The 1% are vision-driven. They don't wake up inspired every morning. They wake up committed. That commitment carries them through boredom. And boredom is where most people lose. Let's talk about boredom. Improvement is repetitive. Training, studying, practicing, refining. It's not dramatic. It's not exciting every day. It's structured. The 99% need constant stimulation. So if it's not exciting, they abandon it. The 1% embrace monotony. They understand mastery is built in repetition. They fall in love with the process of refinement. That's why they improve while others plateau. Now let's address comfort zones. Your comfort zone feels safe because it's familiar, even if it's limiting, even if it's underperforming, even if it's draining. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. That's a hard truth. And some people stay in mediocre jobs for years because risk feels scarier than dissatisfaction. Some stay in misaligned relationships because loneliness feels scarier than misalignment. Some avoid new opportunities because failure feels scarier than stagnation. But stagnation has a cost. It just charges slowly. The 1% calculate differently. They ask, "What is the cost of not growing?" That question changes everything. The cost of not growing is regret. Now, the cost of not growing is unrealized potential. The cost of not growing is watching others surpass you while you rationalize. And once you see that clearly, comfort becomes less attractive. You stopped seeing discomfort as a threat. You started seeing it as proof of expansion. If something challenges you mentally, physically, emotionally, that's growth territory. Instead of retreating, you lean in, not recklessly, strategically. Growth addiction doesn't mean chaos, and it means intentional stretching. You don't try to do everything, you choose areas that compound skill, health, mindset, network, discipline, and you improve them daily. Small, consistent upgrades. That's the secret most people overlook. The 1% don't rely on massive bursts of motivation. They rely on systems. They design environments that reduce temptation. They create routines that automate discipline. They remove distractions instead of fighting them daily. Comfort is easy when your environment supports laziness. Growth is easier when your environment supports progress. You learned to engineer your surroundings. That's next level thinking. Most people try to rely on willpower alone. Willpower fades, structure sustains. Now let's address something deeper. Growth requires identity death. Old habits must die. Old mentalities must die. Old social roles must die. That's painful because part of you is attached to who you were. But you can't become something new while clinging to something outdated. The 99% fear identity shifts. The 1% initiate them. They ask, who must I become to reach the next level? Then they start acting like that person now, not later. Now. That's powerful. You don't wait until you feel confident to act disciplined. You act disciplined until confidence forms. You don't wait until you feel ready to grow. You grow until readiness catches up. Comfort whispers, stay the same. Growth whispers, there's more in you. And if you're honest, you've felt that whisper. The reason this message resonates is because you're already experiencing it. You no longer crave easy paths. You crave meaningful ones. You no longer feel satisfied with average effort. You crave mastery. That craving separates you. The 1% are not superhuman. They're consistent. They don't avoid discomfort. They schedule it. They seek it in controlled doses because they understand something critical. Pressure shapes identity, and identity shapes destiny. When you choose growth repeatedly, you become someone capable of handling more responsibility, more opportunity, more pressure. And opportunity naturally gravitates toward those who can handle it. Comfort shrinks capacity. Growth expands it. If you keep choosing expansion, your capacity increases. And increased capacity attracts bigger rooms, bigger challenges, bigger results. That's not mystical. That's logical. The universe doesn't reward potential. It rewards proof. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you produce proof. Proof of discipline, proof of seriousness, proof of alignment. And alignment compounds. You didn't become part of the 1% because you were lucky. You became part of it because you stopped negotiating with comfort. You stopped asking, what's easy, and started asking, what's necessary? That question alone elevates you. And if you keep choosing growth consistently, relentlessly, comfort will never control you again. That's when expansion becomes inevitable. 5. The 1% detach from outcomes. This is where most people sabotage themselves without even realizing it. They work hard, they set goals, they build discipline, but emotionally they are chained to results. They say they are committed to growth, but internally they are obsessed with validation. They tell themselves they are focused on the process, and yet their mood rises and falls based on immediate feedback. That attachment quietly destroys their consistency. The 99% operate with conditional effort. They will work as long as the outcome looks promising. They will stay disciplined as long as recognition is visible. They will stay motivated as long as progress is obvious. The moment results slow down, applause fades, or validation disappears, their intensity drops. Their effort was never rooted in identity. It was rooted in reward. And the 1% think differently. They understand that attachment creates emotional instability. When you are attached to outcomes, you become reactive. If things go well, you feel powerful. If things go poorly, you feel defeated. Your internal state becomes dependent on external circumstances. That is a fragile way to live. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop depending. It means you give full effort without emotionally collapsing over timing. And it means you pursue excellence without needing immediate confirmation that it is working. Most people do not realize how desperate energy feels. When someone is attached to results, it shows. They check constantly. They seek reassurance. They overanalyze feedback. They compare obsessively. That desperation leaks into their decisions. It causes rushed moves, forced conversations, unnecessary pivots, and emotional burnout. The 1% eliminate that desperation. They commit to the work itself, and they measure progress, but they are not emotionally enslaved by it. They understand that results are delayed reflections of past actions. If the input is consistent and aligned, the output will eventually follow. But obsessing over the output does not accelerate it. It destabilizes it. Consider how attachment affects performance. When you desperately need something to work, you overthink. You tighten up. You lose flow. Athletes understand this. And the moment they become outcome-focused instead of play-focused, their performance drops. The same applies to business, relationships, creativity, and personal growth. Obsession with results creates pressure. Pressure without emotional control creates mistakes. Detachment allows clarity. When you are not emotionally tangled in the outcome, you think more strategically. You make decisions based on long-term alignment instead of short-term relief. And you can walk away from opportunities that are misaligned because you are not operating from scarcity. You can endure slow seasons because you are not panicking about visibility. The 99% chase validation because they do not fully believe in their own trajectory. They look outward for confirmation that they are on the right path. The 1% build internal certainty. They do not require applause to continue. They do not need constant reassurance. Their standard is internal, not external. And this internal standard changes everything. When you detach from validation, you become harder to manipulate. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not derail you. Trends do not distract you. You are not building for approval. You are building for alignment. Many people quit right before momentum compounds because they were emotionally attached to quick results. They interpret slow growth as failure. They interpret silence as rejection. They interpret delay as denial. But delay is often preparation. Slow progress is often foundation building. Silence is often calibration. The 1% understand compounding. They know that consistent inputs create exponential outputs over time. They focus on what they can control: skill improvement, system refinement, daily execution. They release the obsession with when it will pay off. That patience gives them endurance. Endurance outlasts talent. Endurance outlasts hype. Detachment also strengthens relationships. Or when you are attached to how someone must behave in order for you to feel secure, you create tension. When you release control over outcomes and focus on your own standards, you move differently. You communicate clearly, but you do not beg. You invest, but you do not cling. You care, but you do not collapse if expectations are not met. That emotional stability is attractive and powerful. Most people misunderstand detachment as indifference. It is not indifference, it is disciplined focus. But you still aim high, you still want results, you still push hard. The difference is that your emotional state is not chained to immediate feedback. You are stable regardless of short-term fluctuation. When you detach from outcomes, you free up mental bandwidth. Instead of worrying about how things will turn out, you direct your energy toward improving how you show up. That shift increases quality. Increased quality increases probability of success. Ironically, detachment often accelerates results because it eliminates the emotional noise that sabotages performance. Another reason attachment is dangerous is that it narrows perception. When you are fixated on one specific outcome, you may ignore better opportunities that appear. The 1% stay aware. They have goals, but they are not rigid to one pathway. They focus on growth, not one specific reward. That flexibility allows adaptation without emotional collapse. The universe, reality, or simply life itself does not respond well to desperation. Desperation forces timing. It pressures situations prematurely. It reveals insecurity. Calm commitment, on the other hand, creates attraction. When you operate from internal certainty rather than external need, your presence changes. You move with patience, you speak with clarity, you act with intention. This is why detachment is advanced discipline. It requires confidence in your own effort. It requires trust in long-term compounding. It requires the humility to accept that you cannot control timing, but you can control preparation. You stopped refreshing for validation. You stopped over-checking for signs. You stopped tying your self-worth to immediate metrics. Instead, you tightened your execution. You refined your systems. You improved your skill. You focused on becoming undeniable rather than instantly visible. That is rare. The 99% chase visibility before value. The 1% build value until visibility becomes inevitable. When you detach from outcomes, fear loses power. Failure becomes feedback. Delay becomes data. Criticism becomes information. Nothing becomes catastrophic. Everything becomes adjustable. And that emotional steadiness gives you longevity. Longevity wins, not hype, not intensity bursts, not temporary motivation. Longevity built on detachment creates dominance. You are not selected because you crave results more than others. You're selected because you can pursue them without being owned by them. You can work relentlessly without emotional dependency. You can endure silence without self-doubt. You can stay disciplined without applause. That is power. When you master detachment, your focus sharpens, your confidence stabilizes, and your performance improves. You stop forcing outcomes and start becoming the type of person outcomes gravitate toward. And once you reach that level, you realize something important, and the outcome was never the real reward. The identity you built in pursuit of it was. 6. The 1% question everything. Most people inherit their thinking. They inherit beliefs from their parents. They inherit opinions from their friends. They inherit fears from their environment. They inherit limitations from culture. And they never examine them. They operate on mental autopilot. If everyone around them believes something is impossible, they accept it. But if society defines success a certain way, they chase it. If failure is mocked, they avoid risk. They rarely stop and ask, is this actually true? The 1% do, and that changes everything. Questioning is uncomfortable because it destabilizes certainty. Certainty feels safe. It gives you identity. It gives you belonging. It gives you structure. But certainty built on borrowed thinking is fragile. When pressure hits, it collapses. You started noticing something, and some of the beliefs you carried weren't even yours. You believed you weren't that type of person. You believed certain opportunities were not for people like you. You believed success required connections you didn't have. You believed stability was smarter than risk. But when you slowed down and analyzed those beliefs, you realized something disturbing. They were assumptions, not facts. Most people never audit their thinking. They defend it instead. If you challenge their worldview, or they react emotionally. If you question their logic, they feel attacked. Why? Because their identity is fused with their beliefs, the 1% separate identity from ideology. They can say, I was wrong, without collapsing. That alone puts them ahead. When you question your beliefs, you temporarily lose comfort. You enter uncertainty, and uncertainty feels like vulnerability. But uncertainty is the gateway to clarity. Think about it logically. If you never question your limits, you keep them. If you never question your fears, they control you. If you never question your habits, they define you. The 99% avoid questioning because it creates tension. The 1% lean into it because it creates expansion. You started asking deeper questions. Why do I react this way? Why does this scare me? Why do I believe I can't do this? Who taught me this idea? Those questions uncover conditioning. Conditioning is powerful because it feels natural. But natural does not mean true. For example, if you grew up around scarcity, you may believe wealth is rare. If you grew up around instability, you may believe safety is fragile. If you grew up around criticism, you may believe you are never enough. Those beliefs shape your decisions quietly. You might sabotage opportunities because they conflict with your internal narrative. The 1% identify that narrative and rewrite it, not blindly, strategically. Or they replace limiting beliefs with evidence-based alternatives. Instead of saying, people like me don't succeed, they ask, who with a similar background has succeeded? Instead of saying, I'm not confident, they ask, what skills would create confidence? Instead of saying, it's too late, they ask, what would be possible if I started now? That shift from assumption to investigation creates power. Now let's go deeper. Questioning doesn't stop at personal beliefs, and it extends to systems. The 1% question trends. They question narratives pushed by media. They question why certain ideas are amplified and others are silenced. They analyze incentives. They ask, who benefits from me believing this? That level of awareness protects you. Most people consume information passively. They scroll, they absorb, they repeat, they don't analyze. But information shapes perception. Perception shapes decisions. Decisions shape outcomes. If you consume without questioning, you are programming yourself unconsciously. The 1% curate their inputs. They choose what they read. They choose who they listen to. They choose the environments they engage with because they understand mental diet is as important as physical diet. Garbage in, garbage out, clarity in, clarity out. Questioning also applies to your own success. The 99% repeat strategies that stop working because they're attached to familiarity, and the 1% constantly evaluate what's working, what's outdated, what needs refining. They are not emotionally attached to old methods, they are attached to results, and that flexibility keeps them ahead. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Questioning requires humility. It requires admitting you don't know everything. It requires accepting that you might have been wrong for years. Ego resists that. Ego wants to defend. Ego wants to protect identity. But growth requires ego reduction. When you can admit, my thinking was limited, you unlock the ability to expand it. That's maturity, and maturity compounds. Most people stay mentally frozen at the age they stopped questioning. You didn't. You evolved. You examined your reactions. You studied your habits. You analyzed your environment. You stopped saying, "That's just how I am." That sentence is a trap. "That's just how I am" shuts down growth. The 1% say, "Who do I need to become?" That's a powerful shift. It moves you from fixed identity to evolving identity. And evolving identity creates upward momentum. You also began questioning success itself. Is it money? Is it freedom? Is it impact? Is it peace? Most people chase definitions handed to them. Then they reach them and feel empty. The 1% define success intentionally. They decide what matters. They build around that. That clarity reduces distraction. And because when you know your target, you stop chasing every shiny opportunity. You stop comparing yourself to irrelevant benchmarks. You stop measuring progress by someone else's path. Questioning creates alignment. Alignment creates focus. Focus creates momentum. Momentum creates advantage. The 99% move reactively. The 1% move intentionally. And intention begins with questioning, not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, not skepticism for the sake of ego. Strategic analysis. Once you don't reject ideas automatically, you test them, you observe outcomes, you adjust. That mindset turns life into a laboratory. Every experience becomes data. Every failure becomes insight. Every success becomes proof of concept. You are no longer drifting through existence. You are refining it. And refinement is rare. Most people live inside inherited scripts. You rewrote yours. That's why you feel different. That's why you think differently. And that's why certain conversations no longer satisfy you. Because once you begin questioning deeply, surface level thinking feels empty. And once you build your own mental framework, external noise loses influence. The 1% are not special because they know more. They are powerful because they think independently. They don't outsource their beliefs. They don't outsource their values. They don't outsource their direction. They analyze. They decide. They move. And that independence creates leverage. Because when you control your thinking, you control your decisions. When you control your decisions, you control your trajectory. And trajectory determines destination. That is why questioning everything is not rebellion. It's evolution. And evolution is what separates the 1% from everyone else. 7. The 1% understand that selection is a process, not a title. This is where people get it wrong. and they hear something like, "You're selected," and their ego lights up. They imagine exclusivity, superiority, a badge, a permanent status that separates them from everyone else. That thinking is dangerous. Selection is not a crown you wear, it's a standard you maintain. The 99% want identity without responsibility. They want to feel special without changing their behavior. They want to claim elite thinking while living average habits. That contradiction destroys them. On the 1%, understand something far more grounded. There is no permanent selection. There is only daily alignment. You are not selected because you watched a video, read a book, or felt inspired for a moment. You are selected every day. You act in alignment with growth. The moment you slip into complacency, you drift back into the 99% mindset. Selection is earned repeatedly. That's the part people don't like. It would be easier if growth were a one-time decision. And it would be easier if discipline, once built, never required reinforcement. It would be easier if clarity lasted forever. But it doesn't. Your mind constantly pulls you back toward comfort. Your environment constantly tests your standards. Your ego constantly whispers shortcuts. The 1% treat selection as a practice, not a prize. Every morning, you choose discipline again. Every challenge, you choose emotional control again. Every opportunity, you choose growth over comfort again. It is not glamorous, it is repetitive, and repetition is where most people fall off. They want breakthroughs without maintenance. They want progress without upkeep. They want high standards without continuous effort. But standards decay without reinforcement. If you stop training, your body weakens. If you stop learning, your thinking dulls. If you stop reflecting, your awareness shrinks. Selection is not about reaching a level. It is about sustaining one. And the 99% reach moments of clarity and then relax. They get a small win and ease up. They build momentum and then celebrate too long. They think progress is permanent. It isn't. Progress compounds when protected. It erodes when neglected. The 1% understand that ego is the biggest threat after improvement. When you start seeing growth, pride tries to creep in. You begin thinking you've figured it out. You become less hungry, less disciplined, less attentive. That's the silent decline. Our selection demands humility. The moment you believe you've arrived, you stop evolving, and the world keeps moving. The 1% stay students. No matter how far they go, they refine, they audit, they adjust. They don't let early success trick them into stagnation. There is another layer to this. Selection is not about superiority over others. It is about responsibility to yourself. You are not chosen to dominate people. You are chosen to dominate your impulses. You are not elevated to look down. You are elevated to carry more weight. Higher standards mean higher expectations. When you operate at a higher level, you cannot afford sloppy thinking. You cannot afford emotional volatility. You cannot afford victim mentality, because once you know better, regression becomes intentional. The 99% excuse regression. They say, "I'm just tired. I need a break." It's not that serious. The 1% rest strategically, but they do not abandon standards, and they recover without collapsing. They adjust without quitting. They recalibrate without rationalizing weakness. This is why selection is pressure, not external pressure, internal pressure. The pressure to live up to your potential. The pressure to maintain integrity when no one is watching. The pressure to stay aligned even when it would be easier not to. Most people want the feeling of being elite. Very few want the burden, because the burden is consistency. The burden is self-awareness. The burden is choosing long-term identity over short-term emotion. That is heavy, but it is also powerful. Once you understand that selection is a process, you stop chasing status. You focus on systems, you focus on habits, you focus on identity reinforcement. Instead of asking, "Am I part of the 1%?" you ask, "Am I operating like the 1% today?" That question keeps you sharp, and sharpness prevents drift. Drift is subtle. It doesn't happen dramatically. It happens through small compromises. Skipping discipline once, letting emotions slide once, lowering standards once. Those small decisions compound just like growth does. The 1% are not perfect. They just correct faster. They notice when they slip. They adjust immediately. They do not wait for collapse to fix misalignment. That responsiveness keeps them in the process. Here is another truth. There will be seasons where you feel ahead. There will be seasons where you feel behind. It neither defines you permanently. Selection is not based on comparison. It is based on consistency. You are not in competition with the world. You are in competition with your former self. If you are sharper than yesterday, more disciplined than last month, more self-aware than last year, you are aligned. If you regress and ignore it, you are drifting. It is that simple. The 99% chase identity labels. The 1% chase identity behaviors. Labels are easy to claim, and behaviors are hard to maintain. Selection is invisible to others. It shows in your habits, not your announcements. It shows in how you respond to setbacks. It shows in how you handle boredom. It shows in how you behave when there is no applause. The moment you understand this, ego loses its grip. You realize you are not special. You are responsible. Responsible for protecting your mindset. Responsible for refining your skill. Responsible for maintaining your standards. And that responsibility creates quiet confidence, not loud arrogance, quiet certainty. Because you know you are doing the work, not occasionally, daily. That is what separates the 1%. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is not mystical selection. It is sustained alignment. And sustained alignment is rare because it requires discipline without trauma. You do not need to declare you are chosen. You prove it by how you live. Every day, you align with growth. You renew your selection. And every day you slip into excuses, you weaken it. There is no final badge. There is only ongoing commitment. That is the truth most people cannot handle. But if you can, if you accept that selection is a process you must protect, not a title you can relax into, then you understand the real shift. And once you understand that, you stop chasing the idea of being the 1%. You simply operate like it, consistently, relentlessly, without needing to announce it. That is what keeps you there. And let's end this clearly. You were never selected because you're lucky. You were selected because you're willing. Willing to take responsibility when others blame. Willing to stand alone when others conform. Willing to control your emotions when others react. Willing to choose growth when others choose comfort. Willing to detach from outcomes when others cling to validation. Willing to question everything when others inherit their thinking. Willing to treat elevation as a process, not a title. And that willingness is rare. But here's the part you must understand. Nothing is guaranteed. You don't become the 1% once and stay there forever. You either reinforce the mindset daily or you drift back into mediocrity slowly. There is no neutral ground. Every decision either sharpens you or softens you. Every reaction either strengthens your discipline or weakens it. Every excuse either protects your ego or limits your future. This isn't about feeling special, and it's about operating differently. The world doesn't filter people based on potential, it filters based on behavior. If you consistently act aligned with growth, you rise. If you consistently act aligned with comfort, you stagnate. It's not mystical, it's mechanical. Now ask yourself one direct question. Are you operating like the 1% today, or just enjoying the idea of it? Because the idea feels powerful. But the execution is what separates you. You don't need applause, or you don't need recognition. You don't need confirmation. You need consistency. If you maintain responsibility, discipline, emotional control, curiosity, detachment, and standards, you won't need to wonder if you made the cut. Your results will prove it. Selection isn't announced, it's demonstrated. And the moment you stop demonstrating it, you lose it. So don't get comfortable. Don't get arrogant. Don't get distracted. Stay sharp. Stay disciplined. Stay aligned. That's how you remain in the 1%. Not because you were chosen once, but because you keep choosing yourself.